Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Let's just say, if you're ever going to ruin someone's life over text, at least make sure they can't legally ruin yours back. Her message came at 6:12 p.m. I was holding a pen, halfway through signing a joint wire transfer for the house she claimed she manifested into existence. We weren't married yet. That was scheduled for next month. But she'd already told her friends, her mother, and even her hair stylist that she owned the place. She didn't. We didn't. The bank didn't even know she existed. Then boom buzz. Wedding's off. Expect my lawyer's call. No, sorry. No, let's talk. Just a cold-blooded text, the kind that sounds like it was pre-written days ago and saved in drafts. I didn't panic. I paused. Then I put the pen down, stood up, and closed my laptop without a sound. She had no idea. No clue that she just triggered the quietest chain reaction of her life. You see, I never added her to the loan. The mortgage? In my name only. The inspection photos she bragged about online, from the living room to the backyard fire pit, all came from my drive. The deposit she claimed she negotiated down? I paid it, quietly, from my late grandfather's trust. She thought she was walking away from me and taking the house with her. She didn't realize she was walking away from her own exit strategy, barefoot and blindfolded. I didn't respond to her text, didn't even read it again. Instead, I logged into the portal, canceled the pending wire, and called my realtor. New plan, I said. We're pulling out. She thinks she owns something. Let's make sure she never sees the paperwork. What happened next? The silence after I canceled everything was oddly comforting. For the first time in weeks, there was no ticking clock, no passive-aggressive text about floral arrangements or head counts. Just stillness. I thought maybe I'd feel devastated, like the rug had been yanked out from under me. But it was the opposite. I felt like I'd finally stepped off a moving train that was heading toward a cliff. She didn't call. Not that night. Not the next. And I didn't reach out either. I figured she'd surface eventually, probably with a carefully rehearsed explanation. What I didn't expect was the meltdown to begin so quickly, and so publicly. On Monday morning, while I was brushing my teeth, my phone lit up with a series of Instagram story mentions. Apparently, she'd gone to visit our future home that afternoon. She posted a boomerang on the porch, smiling wide, captioned, "Future looks bright." Then another from the side gate with the phrase, "Manifestation in motion." She had no idea. None. Because just hours before she arrived, the locks were changed. Legally, quietly, and without fanfare. I'd hired a local locksmith the same day I canceled the wire transfer. Technically, the place still belonged to the builder, but I'd been given early access during escrow. When I backed out, that access ended. She didn't realize she was trespassing, on paper and in reality. That same afternoon, I got a call from the realtor, barely holding back laughter. "You're not going to believe this," she said. She showed up and tried to let herself in. When the key didn't work, she banged on the door, saying she was the owner. "She said what?" I asked, stunned. "She said she and her fiancé bought it together." But then she stopped using the word fiancé halfway through the sentence and just called you, "the guy who invested with me," like it was some kind of partnership deal. I felt something cold twist in my gut. That wasn't just detachment, that was strategy. She'd rewritten the story already, turning me from a man she was going to marry into a stepping stone in her real estate fantasy. But here's where it gets worse. By that evening, I got an email from her lawyer, or at least someone claiming to be. It was laughably vague. Per our client's instructions, we request an urgent conversation regarding shared property rights and financial contributions. They didn't even list the address of the house. Just joint ventures. Joint ventures? We weren't business partners. We were supposed to be a family. I didn't reply. I sent it straight to my own attorney, a quiet bulldog named Russell, who'd helped me set up protections months ago when I started feeling like something was off. Ivy never knew. She thought I was clueless. She never realized I'd been documenting everything, even her attempt to use my name on pre-approval forms without telling me. By Wednesday, things turned from awkward to surreal. I hadn't spoken to Ivy since her abrupt message. The radio silence felt intentional on her part, like she thought ghosting me was a power move, like she expected me to grovel, to chase her, to try to fix whatever imaginary betrayal she'd built up in her mind. But I wasn't doing that. Not this time. Instead, I was watching her spiral in real time, and the fallout wasn't just private anymore, it was bleeding into everything. It started with a phone call from Lacey, my cousin who works in social media marketing. She sounded weirdly amused and cautious at the same time. "Hey, you might want to check Ivy's LinkedIn," she said. I hadn't thought to look there. I mean, why would I? But when I opened it, my stomach nodded. Ivy had updated her headline to Founder Real Estate Consultant Owner of 1443 Daisy Avenue. Except she didn't own that house. She never did. And now she was literally branding herself around it. Not just with pictures. She wrote a long, polished post about how she fought through financial odds, how she personally secured a deal that symbolized independence, and even thanked her supportive inner circle for believing in her vision. She didn't mention me. Not once. I'd been erased from the story like I never existed. That same post had over 600 likes and dozens of congratulatory comments. Realtors, old friends, some of her clients, all cheering her on for something that was entirely built on my resources and my name. I sat there reading each line, feeling more humiliated by the minute. Not just because of the lie, but because I knew exactly what came next. She was building a brand off of a house she couldn't legally step into. That evening, Russell, my lawyer, called me. "We've got movement," he said. Her side sent over a new email. "They're now claiming she made verbal agreements with you regarding ownership of shared property." "She's going for common law?" I asked, stunned. Sort of. They're grasping at straws. But here's the interesting part. They submitted screenshots of text messages. Only, they're edited. I froze. She doctored messages? "Oh, poorly," he chuckled. "They're obviously cropped. One even starts mid-sentence. She clearly wants to paint the picture that you promised her equity. But none of it holds up." I should have been relieved, but instead I felt sick. She wasn't just lying to save face. She was constructing an entirely new version of our relationship. Cleaner one. One where she was the visionary, the builder, and I was just a helpful financial ghost who happened to float into her story at the right time. I stared out the window that night, thinking about the smallest things. Like the time she made us stop at that cafe near the property because she wanted to visualize the neighborhood. Or how she always corrected me when I said, "Our house." She'd say, "My next big step." She never saw me as a partner. I was a ladder, and now that she thought she'd climbed high enough, she kicked it away. But what she didn't realize was that she was climbing a floor that didn't exist. And it was about to collapse. I found out she got the letter before she even opened it, because she posted about it. That's how warped her mindset had become. Ivy had received a certified envelope from my attorney's office and, instead of handling it quietly, she took a photo of it on her marble countertop, captioned it, "Some people try to intimidate you when they realize they've lost you. Stay grounded." I stared at the post in disbelief. There it was, my name blacked out with a cheap marker, but the rest of the label was clearly visible. She turned a legal document into online content. I had to reread the caption just to be sure she was serious. But the best part? She didn't even know what was inside yet. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't an insult. It was just a cold, simple statement of facts. A notice of full withdrawal from the joint property discussion. A termination of any pending financial ties. A summary of documentation showing my sole ownership during the entire process. And one last clause. A reminder that any attempt to misrepresent ownership could result in legal action for fraud. She read it that evening. I knew, because I got the call at 9:11 p.m. Not a text, not a voice message, a full-on, rage-fueled call from a number I hadn't blocked yet, because a part of me was still stupidly waiting for her to just admit the truth. But no, what I got instead was a breathless voice shouting my name like it was some kind of curse. "You sent me a threat. Are you kidding me, Elwood? You're seriously doing this to me? You think you're going to humiliate me in front of everyone?" I didn't raise my voice. I just listened. Then, When she paused to breathe, I said quietly, "You humiliated yourself." I just stopped covering it up. There was silence. And then she hung up. But that wasn't the end of it. The next morning, someone tagged me in a local Facebook thread. Apparently, Ivy had gone to the open house tour for the same development, 1443 Daisy's neighboring property, and caused a scene. Told the sales rep she was being bullied by a former partner, claimed she was in negotiations for multiple homes, and tried to assert her ownership again in front of a small crowd. Except the rep knew me. She pulled Ivy aside and told her, very calmly, that the home had been pulled from escrow by me alone, that no documents bore Ivy's name, that she should probably consult her legal team before continuing with any narrative that contradicted the records. Ivy left mid-sentence. No post that day. No stories. Just silence. It was the first time I saw her vanish. Not by blocking me or ghosting me or cutting me out, but because the version of herself she built finally hit something it couldn't bend. The truth. For days passed with no word, no calls, no posts, no fake motivational quotes about healing or rebuilding or self-worth. Just silence, eerie, deliberate silence. And for the first time since her infamous text, I started to wonder if she had finally understood the weight of what she'd done. Or maybe, more likely, she was just regrouping. It was Sunday morning when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone. I just poured coffee, still in the oversized hoodie she used to steal off my chair. I didn't even check the peephole, just opened the door casually. And there she was, Ivy, standing on my front step, no makeup, dressed in an oversized sweater I didn't recognize, holding a box. Not a dramatic suitcase or a folder of documents. Just a plain cardboard box, slightly damp from the misty weather. Her eyes were puffy, and her hair wasn't styled like usual. She looked human, smaller somehow. But I didn't say a word. I just stood there and waited. She didn't say hi. She didn't ask to come in. She just held out the box and said, "These are yours." I didn't reach for it. "What is it?" Her eyes flinched like the question hurt. "Stuff you gave me. Notes, keys, the charger I kept borrowing. That old ring your mom gave me. I don't want to keep anything that belongs to you." I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt like this was the moment I won. But instead I just felt cold, tired, like I was watching someone return props after a failed performance. She placed the box on the ground. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I messed everything up." Still, I didn't speak. "I wasn't going to take the house," she continued, her voice cracking. I wanted people to think I was strong, that I didn't need anyone. I didn't know how to say that without lying." I waited, still quiet. Then she added, "The story got away from me." That part hit different, because that was the one truth I actually believed. The moment she started pretending to be someone else, someone independent, unbothered, wildly successful. She had no clue how far that version would spiral. She built a fantasy and then watched herself disappear inside it. "I'm not asking you to fix anything," she added quickly. "I just wanted to return what's yours, and say I'm sorry. That's it." She turned to leave. But then, just before stepping off the porch, she stopped and pulled something small from her jacket. It was the house brochure, the original one we'd used when we toured the place the first time. She'd written something on the back. I didn't open it until hours later, after she was long gone. It just said, "I told everyone this house was mine. I didn't realize it never would be, because I never earned it." And below that, in the same handwriting, scratched like it had been added later, "Neither did I earn you." I folded the page and didn't cry. But I wanted to, because for the first time it didn't feel like she was trying to win. I didn't hear from her again after that morning. No more knocks at the door. No surprise texts. The box stayed in the corner of my living room for a few days until I finally had the stomach to go through it. Most of it was exactly what she said. The little things that didn't matter much on their own but together carried weight. A receipt from our first dinner. A broken charger. A hotel keycard from a trip we never took. It was like she packed a time capsule of guilt and left it at my door. The silence that followed was a kind I hadn't known in years. No notifications. No passive-aggressive emails. No scheduled calls or reminder to finalize venue menu alerts. The wedding was supposed to be in 9 days. Instead, I was eating reheated noodles on my couch, watching old documentaries and wondering how I ever got this far into a relationship where the warning signs were practically in neon. Then, just when I thought the last of her had faded from my life, something arrived in the mail. It was from the city records office, one of those brown paper envelopes I almost tossed, thinking it was a property tax notification. Inside was a standard disclosure form. Nothing flashy. Just a note indicating an update had been filed for an address I recognized instantly. 1443 Daisy Avenue. I hadn't thought about the house much since pulling out of escrow. It had already been relisted by the developer. But apparently, someone had filed a notice of interest regarding the property. That's when I saw her name, Ivy Maylee, in print, on a legal filing that declared her as having a potential stake of interest in the home. My hands actually shook. I wasn't even angry, I was just stunned. She was still trying. Not with a lawyer this time, but through a loophole. A legal strategy people use to complicate property deals, to delay sales, slow down transfers, muddy the waters just enough to make the new buyer hesitate. She wasn't coming for me anymore. She was coming for the house. Again. I called Russell immediately. He was quiet for a long time after I read him the form. "This is desperate," he finally said. "She's trying to stall the resale. Maybe to make herself look involved. Maybe to save face. But don't worry. It won't hold. We'll file a response. It's paper thin." "But why now?" I asked. She apologized. She backed off. She gave everything back. "She probably thought you were done watching," he said. That night, I looked her up again. Her LinkedIn was gone. Instagram too. Even the old Pinterest board full of wedding ideas and kitchen counters and dream home inspirations had been scrubbed. She was erasing everything, except the one thing that still mattered to her ego, the illusion that the house had ever been hers. And now, whether I wanted to or not, I was being pulled back into her orbit. Not emotionally, legally. She wasn't trying to be part of my life anymore. She was trying to rewrite where her story ended. Russell moved fast after the notice of interest hit my mailbox. Within 2 days, he filed a formal opposition, attached with documented proof that Ivy had never contributed to the escrow, wasn't listed on any bank records, and had no legal or financial claim to the property. He also requested a hearing to remove the filing permanently from the public record. That should have been enough. But just to be sure, Russell wanted one more thing, a confirmation from the builder's office that Ivy had been cut off from all communication about the property. We scheduled a meeting at their headquarters, a sleek glass building downtown that smelled like new carpet and coffee nobody ever finishes. I went in thinking it would be a 5-minute formality. It wasn't. The representative, a woman named Noreen, looked exhausted. Not from our meeting, from dealing with Ivy. "She's called 6 times this week," she said as she pulled up a file. "Sometimes pretending to be you, sometimes saying she's your assistant. She even asked if the title could be transferred as a courtesy while you were away." I blinked. "She said what?" "She claimed you were on a spiritual retreat and had authorized her to manage things in your absence." My mouth hung open, speechless. Ivy wasn't just rewriting history. She was performing it. But then Noreen said something that made my skin crawl. "Don't worry. Our calls are recorded. I have the file if your legal team needs it." Russell leaned forward like a shark smelling blood. "Yes, we'd like the recording." 2 days later, I listened to it. Ivy's voice was unmistakable, soft, sweet, overly polite. She even laughed in that fake, breathy way she used at networking events. But it was what she said that sealed it. "I just want to finish what we started," she told the rep. "The house is already part of my brand. If you delay this, you're not just hurting me. You're making a mistake that could reflect badly on your company." She tried to intimidate them with image. She used the word "we" like it was still real, like there hadn't been a text that severed everything weeks ago. "But the worst part," she said, "the man I was engaged to, he's not well right now. Emotionally unstable. He asked me to step in." I didn't even get angry. I just felt hollow. She was willing to weaponize my silence, my withdrawal from her world, and turn it into weakness, all to keep the illusion alive. Russell smiled when he heard it. She just buried herself. We added the audio transcript to the court file. Ivy had no clue we had it, but that was the plan. Let her believe she still had control, until she stepped into the hearing with her signature smirk, and we pulled the floor out from under her. This time, she wasn't walking out with her story intact. The hearing was set for Friday afternoon, in one of those small municipal courtrooms where everything echoes too loud, and the fluorescent lights buzz like judgment itself. I wore a navy jacket I hadn't used since our engagement party. Russell told me not to talk much, just to sit still and let the truth speak for itself. Ivy arrived 12 minutes late. Not dramatically, just late enough to make it seem like she was important. Her hair was curled, her blazer sharp, and her walk confident, almost smug. She didn't look at me once, just nodded politely to the clerk, then handed over a thin folder to her lawyer, a man who looked about as uncomfortable as I felt watching her pretend none of this was absurd. They opened with a statement about good faith, claiming Ivy had a verbal agreement, emotional investment, and intent to co-own the home. Her lawyer spun it well, calm, rehearsed, even sympathetic. If I hadn't lived through it, I might have believed her. Then Russell stood up and spoke for less than 3 minutes. He didn't raise his voice, didn't get theatrical. He just handed over the file, the emails, the financing records, the timestamps, and finally, the transcript of her recorded call to the builder's office. At one point, he looked over at her and said, "Your Honor." The respondent not only had no legal claim but attempted to falsely present herself as a co-owner, while manipulating third parties and threatening reputational damage to a developer, all while our client remained silent. The judge asked Ivy's lawyer if they had a response. He didn't. He just leaned over, whispered something to her, and Ivy's face shifted, like she had been slapped without sound. Her lips moved, but no words came out. Her shoulders dropped. She didn't even try to explain. She just stared straight ahead while the judge ruled in our favor and ordered the removal of her filing. It was over in under 15 minutes. Outside the building, she caught up with me in the parking lot. I expected another performance, but this time there was no act left in her. No smirk, no righteous anger, just a whisper. I lost everything. I didn't say anything cruel. I didn't gloat. I just said, "No, Ivy, you just finally saw what wasn't yours to begin with." Then I walked away. That night I didn't go home and cry. I didn't pour a drink or replay the drama in my head. I pulled out the box she gave back to me weeks earlier. One by one, I removed the notes, the old receipts, the keepsakes. I kept the house brochure, not out of sentiment, but as a reminder of what I nearly gave away to someone who was only ever acting like she loved me. Then I opened my laptop, found the listing for a new place, one I'd always liked but never dared consider, because she didn't like the neighborhood. This time, I applied for it alone. And I smiled. That's it, the end of this story. But for those of you still watching Reddit Confessions, let me ask you this. Have you ever watched someone build their entire world on a lie, only to see it fall apart? Tell us your story in the comments, we read them all. And if you enjoyed this emotional journey, like, subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to hear what quiet strength really looks like. Until next time.